I'm not well read, so excuse me if my terminology or my question is so basic.
What's your name?
My name is Mira.
Mira, thanks.
When I do my meditations, I've been expanding my consciousness, and I get to a point of dissolving in bliss, but I sense my own fear. And upon trawling you on YouTube, I watched your lecture about this lecture already. In chapter 10, you talked about having the true belief in God. And I realized that's my issue, is that, like forgiveness, there are many layers. While I believe in God, or however you want to say it. So I thought I had it down that, it is the unchanging. It's that which doesn't change. I was good with that. And I had been working on that, so in my meditations, I start to do sort of a sense of time travel, go back, because you go back to what doesn't change, realizing that there is no sense of time, that everything's happening simultaneously.
Trying to come to a question, just because...
You get into the Shakti and the Brahman.
Okay, yeah.
If it's that which doesn't change, but isn't Shakti energy, which is changing?
Yeah, I think that's exactly the point. Sri Ramakrishna said that the dynamic aspect of Brahman is Shakti. Right.
Is changing,
yeah.
But reality is that which doesn't change, but it's changing if it's Shakti.
Yeah, no, again, I think we're mixing paradigms here, because it would be Shankara's Advaita, which says that the only truth is that which doesn't change. And I think Sri Ramakrishna says, no, the same divine reality has both static and dynamic aspects, both of which are real. So thanks for that question. I think that helps to clarify the difference. Yes.
Thank you, Swami. My name is Selvam. As you are interpreting Swami Vivekananda's lectures, doctrines, and personal messages to devotees, there is a levels of localizations and personalization in that message. How much of that is an hindrance and consideration while you're taking that access?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So I think the question you're asking is, Swamiji seem to say different things to different people in different contexts. And so this is something that every scholar writing on Vivekananda has to be aware of. And so, for instance, I look carefully at the different kinds of audiences that he spoke to, and what I found is certain consistent explanations. And some people say that, well, he gave a different message to the US and in the West and a different message in India. That's true in certain respects, especially regarding social issues and stuff like that. I don't think it's true of the key doctrines of Advaita Vedanta. I did look into that, but what I concluded is that both in lectures from Colombo to Almora and in his lectures in the US and in Europe, he's pretty much teaching Advaita pretty consistently in the way that I've explained. Thank you very much. Okay, so, yeah, you first and then we can, okay. You.
Swamiji, pranam.
Name?
Purnima. So this is not just my question, but we've been discussing it as a group. So you answered one of the questions we had, which was we thought what you were saying as Vigyana Vedanta was very much similar to part 2 of Advaita Vedanta, where you say God is everything, so thereby God alone is. But the question for today is, this is also from the biography of Swamiji. It says that, but to see all beings permeated by the Spirit of God is supreme wisdom, Vigyana. But only a few blessed souls could see God dwelling in all. He wanted Narayan to attain the supreme wisdom. So the master said to him, settle your family affairs first, then you shall know a state even higher than Samadhi. So from your lectures, what we feel is Vigyana Vedanta is something for everyone. And yet, it is mentioned again and again. Only Ishvara Koti or people who've attained a state even higher than Samadhi could realize this. So could you clarify that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've gotten this question a lot. I've thought about it myself a lot. It's complicated. The answer is complicated. I mean, it seems to me that when Sri Ramakrishna teaches Vigyana in the Kathamrita, 95% of the time, he is emphasizing that it's really only a state attainable by Ishvara Kotis, which he defines as avatar or avatared ongsho, which means avatars and portions of an incarnation. At the same time, it's a little bit more complicated than that, and I'll just complicate it a little bit and leave it with that. So first of all, Mahapurush Maharaj, Shivanandaji, in a letter to I think a brother disciple or someone else, he says, Thakur didn't give me the stamp of an Ishvara Koti. It's originally in Bangla. And he says, but by his grace, I have been elevated to the status of an Ishvara Koti. So it may not be as strict, these categories of Ishvara Koti and Jiva Koti, as Sri Ramakrishna might make it seem sometimes. It could be more fluid, because by God's grace, anything is possible. That's the first point. Secondly, there's a place in the Kathamrita where Ram, meaning the doctor who was a cousin of Naren, Swami Vivekananda, he kind of, after hearing Sri Ramakrishna talking about Vigyana and how the need for renunciation, he says, what Thakur is saying, that's not for householders. No, householders can't attain the state of Vigyana. And Sri Ramakrishna says, in response, it's a very kind of cagey Bengali language, and I can't reproduce this exactly, but the basic idea is, I'm not saying that it's completely impossible for householders to attain Vigyana. It could be possible. He leaves open the possibility that even householders that people who are not Ishvara Kotis can nonetheless attain the state of Vigyana. And there's a further point, which will only be convincing or appealing to devotees, but which is that I see it in this way. The Sri Ramakrishna, he came, and Swami Vivekananda used to say, with the advent of the Ramakrishna incarnation, a new Satya Yuga has begun. So the devotional way of thinking about this could be that both what was a very rarefied state of spiritual experience before the advent of Sri Ramakrishna has become democratized and universalized after the incarnation, and that's why, arguably, Swami Vivekananda takes it as a state that can be realizable by everybody, God and everything. Sri Aurobindo is another person who was very, very strongly influenced by both Sri Ramakrishna and Swami Vivekananda. And if you look at his work, you'll find that what he calls Vigyana is very much in line with Sri Ramakrishna. Supermind is the English word for it. And he doesn't say it's only for a small number of people. He says that it's universally accessible. So one way of thinking about it is that with the advent of the Ramakrishna incarnation, this rarefied state of Vigyana has been opened up. The floodgates have been opened to everyone.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Yeah, you can come on.
Thank you for coming, Swamiji.
Name?
My name is Arth. I have a question following your response to the counter-argument presented to
Rambachan.
pillar number 5.
Is it the Rambachan? Is that what you're thinking of? Or the counter-argument to Rambachan? Do you say
yes,
counter-argument?
Yes.
Yeah.
So Shankaracharya presents it that in Jnana Yoga, the truth is presented to a mind that's prepared and that produces knowledge of Brahman. And then later in premise number 6, Swami Vivekananda says that every religion is one aspect of yoga, and those aspects of yoga can help to purify the mind and bring them to the ultimate truth. But it seems to me that there's an implicit assumption that those other religions and those other yogas can not only purify the mind, but then also somehow produce that necessary truth that then produces knowledge of Brahman.
What gives you that impression? Because I'm saying that's exactly not his view. Because he says that we already have knowledge of Brahman, and that all that yogas do is a kind of clearing away function, clearing away of impurities, so that the knowledge which is already innate within us can be manifest. That's how I interpret Vivekananda.
And then as a quick follow-up there,
Yeah.
Can you reconcile that then with the original view from Shankaracharya that it's necessary to provide some sort of knowledge to a mind that is ready
No.
to then... Okay.
It's not. That's why I think it's different.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's very helpful. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yes, please come up to the front. Namaste.
Just to clarify, this
Name?
Yeah, sorry, my name is Lena, and I just wanted to clarify that gentleman's question and your talk. So you're saying that, like Swami Vivekananda said, that through 4 paths of yoga, you can reach the ultimate. But isn't it like in Bhagavad Gita, for example, they say it's through Jnana Yoga, which ultimately has to dissolve in Bhakti Yoga?
No, where does it say
The way I understood the interpretation.
I don't really. I mean, there are many different interpretations of Gita. But
because it says
which
like.
sloka are you thinking of?
well, I have to look now, I don't know from my heart, but it says like those who cannot understand Jnana Yoga, they can do Karma Yoga, and to do it, like as you said, to purify the minds enough until they're ready for Jnana Yoga. But now the way I understood in the class today, that even through Karma Yoga, like being of service, you can reach the ultimate.
In fact, arguably, Bhagavad Gita says this. I had a debate with Sarvapriyananda in training center about this, because he was teaching us Gita with Sridhara's Tika. Sridhara was a follower of Shankaracharya. I still remember this vividly. And the shloka is, Karmaneva hi samsiddhim astita janakadeha, loka sangarmevapi sampashan katumasi. Through karma eva, through karma alone, Janaka and others attain perfection. And I raised my hand, either in class or maybe after class, I don't remember which. And of course, Sridhara is a follower of Shankara, so he has to toe the Shankaran line, which is that, yes, what the Gita is saying is that through Karma Yoga, we purify our minds, then we practice Jnana Yoga, we attain fitness for Jnana Yoga, and then we attain Siddhi, perfection. And then I said, well, first of all, Swamiji wanted us to interpret the Gita not from the standpoint of Shankara, but from the standpoint of Sri Ramakrishna. Secondly, couldn't we arrive at a more natural and plausible interpretation of the same shloka? If we take it to just mean literally, if we really take the Eva seriously, it's through karma alone, through karma Eva, through karma itself, that Janaka and others attain perfection. That Karma Yoga is also a direct path to moksha.
That's so interesting. So that karma maybe at some point even like turns into Jnana. I mean, without Jnana.
Again, remember that remember, Swamiji is saying that we already have the knowledge within. And then you might ask about Gita. Gita has the same thing in chapter 3. It says the Jnana is already within us. Jnana navatam jnanam, what is that one? Basically that we have the Jnana already, and that it's covered over by kama. I can't, the shloka is not coming to me, but that's the same idea. We already have Jnana of Brahman, and it's because of this veil of kama that's covering the worldly desires that we don't realize that knowledge or manifest the knowledge that's within us.
I get it. It's like Buddhists say we're already Buddhas inside,
Yeah,
but
I
we
think
just
that's
have not
similar.
recognized our
That's
true
right.
nature.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions? Yeah, please come to the front. Oh no, he's, okay. Yeah, please come to the front.
Namaste, Swamiji.
Namaste.
Namaskar. Just, my name is Karam, and the question is very, very simple, interrelated. The first question is about the relationship of Swamiji with Ramakrishna Paramahansa. He says, you have experienced this, going forward, I will hold the key. And as long as my work is not done, whatever the bargain was between these two powerful spiritual forces. That's the first question. And the second
Wait, what's the question?
What was the question? What exactly is this? Two powerful individual trajectories, their own divine being. What is that key that he was holding? What obstacle did he create?
I see.
Impediment or kavach, so that he could not pierce as long as his work is not done.
Yeah.
So the second one is Kheer Bhavani, when Swami Vivekananda travels towards the end of his life, and suddenly he gets very upset about the demolition of Mother Divine Temple. And he feels if he was alive, he would have fought. And suddenly I believe that his Mother Divine appears before him, tells him, it is not you who's protecting me. I am the one who's protecting. I believe there is something of that type. Going forward, Swamiji was, everything is worthless. It is only she who's operating through us. So these two things have...
What's the question? The second question?
The second one is, I couldn't understand this. Like, what exactly is this? How do you synthesize with Swamiji's Purusharth?
Okay, I see. Okay, so regarding the first question, this is one of those another one of those $1 million questions in our tradition. Yeah. What exactly did Sri Ramakrishna mean when he said that I've now, I've now locked the treasure chest and I won't open it again until he has done Mother's work, Swami Vivekananda has done Mother's work? It's difficult to say, and different monks will, and different scholars will have different interpretations of this. It's an esoteric statement, which, we can't really penetrate into. One way of thinking about it is that he kept a kind of very thin veil of ignorance over him to keep him in the body so he can do Mother's work, basically. Something like that. And the second is about Kheer Bhavani and the incident. I mean, one thing I talk about at the end of chapter 2 of my book is that toward the end of his life, he becomes tremendously bhakti-oriented. And in fact, it's not just the end of his life. It's really interesting. I quote these things in
Yes.
the Katamrita, where Sri Ramakrishna looks at Naran intently, and he says, "You have the eyes of a bhakta, not of a jnani. Jnani's eyes are dry, but you're a bhakta." And he said, so from the beginning, he's kind of like, he knows that Naran's tendencies are toward Advaita, but he keeps telling him, you need to be a Vigyani bhakta. That's an even greater state. The beautiful incident about the banyan tree, when Swamiji tells Thakur, bless me so that I can just be immersed in the state of Nirvikalpa Samadhi and just once in a while come down so I can have a little milk. And he says, shame on you. I thought you would be like a great banyan tree, giving shade to thousands. Now I see you're selfish. You only care about your own liberation. Aren't you the one who sing, "Oh Lord, thou hast become everything"? He's saying, you're not a jnani. You are a great soul. You're destined to be a Vigyani. Brahma Jnana is a trifle for you. And so, just to conclude that my response is, the second question is that he once told Nivedita toward the end of his life, he said, Ramakrishna was all bhakti on the outside and all jnana on the inside.
Yeah, exactly.
And he said, I am all jnana on the outside and bhakti on the inside. And I'm apt to weep like a baby when when I get in this bhakti mood. So the Vigyani is equally both, bhakta and jnani. That's the beauty of Vigyana.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You have your book here?
No. You can get it on Amazon.
But how will I get your name on the book that I want to...
You have to come to Hollywood.
Can you tell people about your class? I registered for.
Oh, thanks. Okay, so a little plug. So the Vedanta Life Academy, run by Swami Harinamanandaji in San Diego, which is a subcenter of Hollywood, he is organizing a 6-week online course based on my book. I'll be teaching it. It begins in mid-October. I don't want to get the date wrong, but in any case, it's just short, within about a week from now. And you have to register online. It's reasonably affordable. It's quite cheap, actually. And it's designed like an academic course, so it's a little bit more demanding than these kinds of one-off lectures where people just sit back and relax and listen. It has homework for every class, and homework from my book. So the required reading is my new book. And I'll be discussing and teaching chapters 1, 2, 3, and 8. So 4 chapters in great detail. So if you're interested in the stuff that I talked about today, I would encourage you to register for that class, the Vedanta Life Academy course.
Part of his question was Sharda and Mother, how do we reconcile that?
Right, yeah. I mean, yeah. So there are different ways. So Sri Ramakrishna used to say the wind of God's grace is always blowing, but you have to set the sail. So it's a kind of really nice way, I think, harmonizing self-effort and God's grace, is that self-effort itself is a sign of God's grace. And it's a way of kind of tapping into God's grace, right? Apala. And then Sangeeta. Oh, you said this. Okay, anyway.
Maharaj, my question is from a cross-cultural perspective, so maybe a little tangential. I was thinking of the distinction between impersonality and personality that you made early on, and I was thinking of whether, in respect to, is that comparable to, say, the distinction between the human and non-human in modern Western philosophical. I'm thinking of Heidegger, but also the critical theory tradition, because the non-human or the inhuman becomes a very important concept for, and then that kind of. To restrict the dimensions of the human for obvious ethical purposes. So that's one. And I guess towards the very end, the kind of turn from inclusivity to pluralism that you made in...
Inclusivism to pluralism.
Inclusivism to pluralism. That's a smaller question, and I was just reflecting on whether that could be construed as kind of a more democratic turn towards individual potential. I don't want to use the word personal there, but individual potentiality of some kind. So anyway,
okay, thanks. Yeah, so regarding the first question about the inhuman and human, is there a connection with the impersonal, personal? I mean, there might be, and there could be interesting research done on that, but I think the key difference here is impersonality and personality are attributes applied to God in the case of Swami Vivekananda. So I'm not sure that.
I see.
Yeah, so that's a kind of a asymmetry. Regarding the second question, I think one part of chapter 3 that I didn't discuss at all today because I just didn't have the time is that I think Swami Vivekananda deepens his religious pluralism into what I call a religious cosmopolitanism. And it exactly is this, which is a strong emphasis on the individual. And he would often say things like, no man, no human being is born into a religion. each person has a religion in the depths of his or her soul. And so through spiritual practice, we discover that unique, tailor-made, customized religion that's unique to us. And then in other places, you would say, I wish that religious sects would multiply until there were as many sects as there were human beings, as there were individuals. So the idea is that, and the beauty of this ideal of combining the four yogas, that helps you to kind of customize that religion that's perfect for you, such that you can make the most rapid spiritual progress. That's how I see it.
Thank you. Yeah.
Anyone else? All right, thanks so much for the questions.
Just wanted to say a couple of words of thanks to Swami Medhananda ji for Ayon Maharaj for coming here, and I hope he'll be coming here often. What he's doing is very important. I often say that the two books he has already written on Sri Ramakrishna, Infinite Paths to Infinite Reality, and Swami Vivekananda's Vedantic Cosmopolitanism, that if he does nothing more in his life, he's already given an enormous amount to the Ramakrishna Vivekananda movement, to our order, to the academic scholarship on religion, and to the world of spiritual seekers as a whole. This is very important. But I know, knowing him for many, many years, as he said, he will not stop working. So he will go, he will go on working. For those who have been listening to my talks, Advaita Vedanta, the dominant feeling might be, not for all of you, in general it might be confusion. And that's the effect I hope it produced, because I was saying to somebody just a little while ago that it's always good to learn a system of philosophy and spiritual path thoroughly, deeply, understand it well, but don't hold on to it too tightly. The problem is the opposite. When we don't know a particular tradition, including our own, we don't know it well, we don't know it in depth, and yet we hold on to it very tightly. That leads to fanaticism, that leads to all kinds of problems. The traditional scholarship in India was that these enormously learned pandits, many of whom were spiritual seekers, some of whom were not spiritual seekers, but one thing they had was an enormous amount of traditional learning. And one characteristic would be they would know Advaita through and through, they would know Dvaita, they would know Vishishta Advaita, and the same pandit could be teaching you Shankara's Advaita Vedanta in depth and teaching somebody else a completely dualistic philosophy in depth. And I'm speaking this from experience. Phyllis Granoff, the pandit, she is the one who did a very high quality English translation of one of the toughest texts of Advaita Vedanta, dialectical texts. The traditional argument in late Vedanta of Khandana Khanda Khadya, Sri Harsha's. One of the toughest texts, dialectical texts of Advaita Vedanta. Phyllis Granoff did that. And she took the help of a pandit in India who taught her Advaita Vedanta at that level. Not an introductory talk. Not a general talk to devotees. It is teaching one of the toughest texts ever written. Not only in Advaita tradition. And at the same time, I found out from our Navyanaya teacher, V.N. Jha, the same pandit at the same time was teaching him Navyanaya at a very deep and profound level, a very subtle level, which is a pluralistic, thoroughly dualistic philosophy. And if you ask that pandit, I don't know, I'm just saying theoretically. If you ask that pandit, so what are your philosophical beliefs or what are your spiritual practices? It could be neither of the two. He might just be a complete Krishna Bhakta. That was the kind of traditional scholarship which was quite prevalent in India, and that's beautiful, I think. So, yes, main purpose is, of course, for Ayon Maharaj to go on doing this work and spreading this message. And this is a kind of work which will go on for centuries, the way I see. He has laid a foundation which is very useful. I always wanted that there could be this high quality, first-rate academic work on Sri Ramakrishna's teachings, on Swami Vivekananda's philosophy, which would be studied, debated, yes, opposed, critiqued across the best universities of the world. And it's happening. The first book, Infinite Paths to Infinite Reality, I saw it with my own eyes in the offices of at least 2 professors at Harvard University, and a third one said that he was reading it at that time. So this is happening, already happening, and it's going to go on. And there'll be other people who will write about this. They already are. And over the next few generations, this work will go on. So once again, I am personally, and we are all on behalf of all of you, I thank Ayon Maharaj. In the early morning meditation, we read something. And today we were reading the teachings of Mahapurush Swami Shivananda. And in one of these rare occasions, where he talks about his full-blown spiritual realization and experience, which is happening at that moment, he talks about it. So I was really struck by that. I think it is this book. Yes. Dead of the Night. Mahapurush Maharaj, Swami Shivananda, he was the president of the order. He was ill at that time. Often nights would pass in deep spiritual moods, samadhi. So dead of the night in Belur Math. On another occasion also, it was dead of night. Mahapurushji was seated on his bed, deep in meditation. After a long while, he started opening his eyes at times and closing them. Just then, a cat. How many of you are dog lovers and how many cat lovers? The cat lover is going to win today. A cat entered the room and mewed. He looked in that direction and saluted the cat with folded hands. The attendant, a monk, was sitting nearby. The attendant nearby could not at first understand that he was saluting the cat. He looked inquiringly at Mahapurushji, at Swami Shivananda, who explained, "Look here, my boy. The master, Sri Ramakrishna, has brought me to such a state that I see everything as nothing but consciousness itself. The same consciousness is at play through everything, houses, furniture, beds, bedsteads, and all creatures. The difference is only in names, but there is oneness behind all. I can see that very clearly, so that I cannot check that mood, however much I may try. That consciousness shines even through this cat, in all its brilliance. This is the mood in which the Master now keeps me fully absorbed. Men and women come in and go out, and I talk with them because I have to. I also eat and move about as in common life because I have to. All that proceeds as though out of past habit. But whenever I lift my mind even a little bit from all of these, I come face to face with this play of consciousness everywhere. Names and forms and all such things belong to a very low order of existence. Whenever the mind transcends names and forms, you come to the acme of realization that everything is full of bliss, everything is full of consciousness. Such things cannot be explained through word of mouth. He alone can know who attains that state. He seemed to be in a mood to talk of many things more, but he became silent all of a sudden. The attendant stood stock still, wondering at what he had just heard. This passage, I was thinking in the morning meditation, has so many nuances, I mean, I found in it a range of philosophical points of view. If you try to explain this, what we just read, is it Advaita? Is it Vishishtadvaita? Is it Kashmiri Shaivism? Is it Tibetan Mahayana Buddhism? You see, notice, I see everything as nothing but consciousness itself. Is it with eyes closed in Nirvikalpa Samadhi? No. With eyes open. Those who say Advaita is a state which is only in Nirvikalpa Samadhi. You come back and you see Dvaita. No. You see the same thing with eyes open. Then he says the same consciousness is at play. Emphasis if I stop there. This is the language of Kashmiri Shaivism. Vilasa, or sometimes vibration, spanda. Now, vibration, usually you talk about insentient things vibrating. But if the same thing a living being is doing, a dog or a cat is doing, you'll say the kitten is playing. So in consciousness seems to be vibrating, moving. It seems full of action and dynamism. You can call it play. Leela is a better word. So divine play. Same consciousness is that play. Again, where? Through everything. We normally associate consciousness with living beings. So he says all creatures. But also he says houses, furniture, beds, bedsteads, and all creatures. And there is, for example, I know Advaita Vedanta a little better than I'm actually better than other philosophical traditions, which I know much less. I can just imagine the amount of philosophical machinery, epistemological machinery generated to bridge the gap between houses on one hand and cats and dogs on the other hand. Sentient beings and jiva, the whole mechanism of reflected consciousness and subtle bodies, which makes a jiva, and insentient being, an insentient being. But behind all is one consciousness. And through all beings, he says that consciousness shines even through this cat. If you say consciousness is all, that's one thing. Consciousness is in and through all, that's another thing. There you can find, you can interpret that as Vishishta Advaita, you can interpret that as Achintya Bheda Bheda. It's my Krishna alone playing in all these beings, in that way. You can do that. And again, in all its brilliance, you can say consciousness is really manifested in all human beings, maximum, enlightened being as the maximum, less and less in other sentient beings, down to these, these chairs and tables, much less so here. And yet Shivananji says, in all its brilliance. I'm reminded of one of the lectures of Swami Ashokananda. He says, it seems to me this doctrine of higher and lower manifestation can only be a relative truth at best. Ultimately, he says, as he quotes Vivekananda, I see no difference between the worm and the Nazarene. Stunning, it might sound sacrilegious, between a worm and Jesus Christ. Not that Jesus Christ is a worm, it's the other way around. It's that whatever seems to me as small and insignificant is permeated and is the same radiance, existence, consciousness, bliss, blazing through all of that. And then, his present state, is he not sitting there with a body? Is he not a sick old man? Is he not? Does he not eat and talk and just like everybody else? He says, yeah, that's also there. And then he says, through past habit, and I'm thinking of the way Advaitins interpret Jivan Mukti, through the force of past samskaras, this particular life goes on. So in this one passage, in the dead of the night, about 100 years, little less than 100 years ago, towards the end of Mahapurushji's life, he's talking to a monk there. Now he's not giving a philosophy lesson here. He's not subscribing to any particular view. He's just telling that monk what he is experiencing at that moment. And this is a mature experience of one of the direct disciples of Sri Ramakrishna. As we just heard, he said, by the grace of Sri Ramakrishna, I have been elevated to the state of an Ishwar Koti. This is this mature spiritual experience of the highest order. And here I can easily see Advaita in all these sentences. In some of the sentences, I have to stretch Advaita a little bit to accommodate that. In all of these sentences, you can explain it through Kashmiri Shaivism. Some of them you have to stretch it a little bit. You can explain it through Vishishta Advaita. You can explain it through, the Vajrayana Tibetan Buddhist, the final kind of, not just the philosophy, the Prasangika Madhyamaka philosophy, but the practices beyond that, which will lead to an experience. So yes. Good. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Take care.